Picture this, you're sitting in the airport waiting for your flight to board. Okay, I know what you're thinking, boring. Well, outside the window, you see a random plane. Your airplane nerd friend next to you says, "Hey, look at that." You say, "Oh, is that a Boeing 737? Your friend responds, "No bro, that's an Airbus A330. And then you wonder how on earth that kid could tell so quickly. Well, don't worry, because I'm gonna help you and plane spotting become best friends in just a few minutes. And soon, that aviation nerd will be wondering where you got all those tricks from. Okay, that's enough yapping, let's get started. We'll begin with easier double-deckers and long-haul planes, then move into the trickier ones that you and your friend are arguing about. The Boeing 747 and Airbus A380 are the only two types of jumbo jets. To tell whether it's a 747 or an A380, all you've got to do is look at the fuselage. If it has two full decks, it's an A380, and if there's this weird half hump like this, it's a 747. Another thing you can do to tell is to look at the landing gear. The 747 has 4 struts and 16 wheels, and the A380 has 4 struts and 20 wheels. Woo, that's a lot of wheels. 777, say it with me, 777, it's not 777. 777, that's what this guy is. How do I know? This airliner looks very unique. The only other planes I see people confuse it with are the Airbus A330, Boeing 767, and Boeing 787. But these 4 planes are easy to tell apart if you know where to look. The 777's tail cone ends in a flat blade shape instead of tapering off, and the cockpit windows are sort of clipped at the bottom as you can see here. The A330 looks very similar, and I mixed this guy up with this 777 a lot. But the way you can tell the difference is through the A330's cockpit windows. Instead of being clipped at the bottom, they're clipped at the top. Moving on, you can tell the 787 apart from everybody else by looking at the edges of its engines. If you look closely, you can see that the nacelle edges are scallops like this to help reduce engine noise. If you can't see the engines, then look at the cockpit because the 787 only has 4 windows. Next up, let's look at the 767, which is also very easy to mix up with the 777. The easiest way to tell them apart is to remember the 777 is much bigger than the 767. One more guy we're going to look at is the A350, who's super simple to tell apart from the rest because of its distinctive masked cockpit windows, kind of like sunglasses. The last long-haul airliner we're going to look at is the A340. This guy is kind of an oddball because it has 1 level and 4 engines, hence the A340. And there you have it, long-haul airliners. But get ready, because we're going to dive into the more difficult airliners to tell apart, midsize. You're going to want to pay attention to this. The 737, admittedly the easiest one of this bunch. This guy is super simple to identify because of its distinct cockpit shape. But how do you tell the 737-800 and 700 from the 737 MAX 8? Just look at the engines. A MAX 8 has scalloped edges, and an 800 has smooth edges. The plane most similar in size to the 737 is the Airbus single-aisle family. This includes the A320, A318, A321, all those fun guys. Just look at the cockpit windows, clipped at the top, and with none of that 737B shaped pizzazz. If anybody has any better ways to tell apart the planes in the Airbus single-aisle family, let me know, but the way I usually do it is just look at the size. Apparently the A220 isn't in that family though, which makes sense, because it looks pretty different from the others. It only has 4 windows. Next, we're going to look at the 757. This guy is an older Boeing jet, and the easiest way to tell it apart is to look for how it sits high on the ground, and it's also very long and thin compared to other jets, kind of like a pencil. The last guy we're going to look at is the 717. If you find this guy, you're pretty lucky, but it's still kind of in existence, so that's how it's included here. That plane has a T-shaped tail and eyebrows. Yes, I see you about to click off this video because regional jets are tiny and boring. But that's not something you should be doing right now. Little planes are very popular for shorter commercial routes and very important, so let's dive in. First off, the Embraer E-jets, like the E170, 75, 190, etc. This guy looks a lot like the Airbus A220, but the nose is flatter and pointier and the engines are a lot smaller. The Embraer CRJ and Embraer ERJ look pretty similar, but the main way to tell them apart is to look at the engines. If you look closely, you can see that they look pretty different. And now you know how to tell apart airplanes. Go to your local airport, grab a lawn chair, and see how many you can identify. If this was helpful at all, please be a homie and give me a sub, and let me know in the comments if you have any other ways to identify any planes on this list.